I memorized like what happens in this first chapter because of how many times I listened to it. It was shining right on her pillow. The other children in the dormitorium had been asleep for hours. Sophia closed her eyes and laid quite still. She tried very hard to doze off. It was no good. The moonbeam was like a silver blade slicing through the room on her face. The house was absolutely silent. No voices came from up or downstairs. There were no footsteps on the floor above either. The window behind the curtains was wide open, but nobody was walking on the pavement outside. No cars went by on the street. Not the tiny sound could be heard anywhere. Sophia had never known such a silence.
Come here.
Perhaps, she told herself, this was what they called the witching hour. The witching hour, somebody had once whispered to her, was a special moment in the middle of the night where every child and every grown-up was in a deep, deep sleep. And all of the dark things came out from hiding and had the world to themselves. The moonbeam was brighter than ever on Sophia's pillow. She decided to get out of bed and close the gap of the curtains.
Yeah.
You got punished if you were caught out of bed after the lights out. Even if you said you had to go to the
What does it do?
Is this a rash?
Laboratory.
It's
That
the
was
virus
no
you caught.
exception as an excuse, and they punished you just the same.
Come here, Fina.
But there was no one about now. Sophia was sure of that. She reached out of her for her glasses
You're lucky.
that lay on the chair beside her bed. They had steel rims and very thick lenses, and she could hardly see anything without them. She put them on, then she slipped out of bed and topped over the window. When she reached the curtains, Sophia hissed it?
Spell it.
Hesitated.
Hesitated.
Hesitated. She longed to duck underneath them and lean out of the window to see what the world looked like now that the witching hour was at hand. She listened again. Everywhere was deathly still. The longing to look out became so strong she couldn't resist it. Quickly she ducked under the curtains and leaned out of the window. In the silvery slivery S-I-L-V-E-R-Y
Silvery.
S-L-I-V-E-R-Y. Slippery. That's what, I don't know what that means. Slippery?
S-I-L.
Silvery.
Silvery moonlight. The village streets she knew so well seemed completely different. The houses looked bent and crooked like houses in a fairy tale. Everything was pale and ghostly and milky white. Across the road she could see Mrs. Rancine?
Miss Rancine.
Mrs. R-A-N-C-E, comma S. I mean, apostrophe S.
Yeah. Miss Rancine's.
Shop. Where you bought buttons and wool and bits of elastic. It didn't look real. There was some dim and misty. There was something dim and misty about that too. Sophia allowed her eyes to travel further and further down the street. Suddenly she froze. There was something coming up. There was something coming up the street. On the opposite side, it was something black. Something tall and black. Something very tall and very black and very thin.
Yeah. You're getting so good at reading, Bo.
Thank you. Who? It wasn't a human. It couldn't be. It was 4 times as tall as the tallest human. It was so tall its head was taller than the upstairs window of the houses. Sophia opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out.
It's not Sophia. It's Sophie.
Sophie opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Her throat,
BFG.
like her whole body, was frozen with fright. This was the witching hour. This was the witching hour, all right. The tall black figure was coming her way. It was keeping very close to the house, across the street route, hiding in the shadowy places where there was no moonlight. On and on it came, nearer and nearer, but it was moving in spurts, S-P-U-R-T-S. Spurts. It would stop, then it would move on, then it would stop again. But what on earth was it doing? Aha! Sophie could see now what it was up to. It was stopping in front of each house. It would stop and peer into the upstairs window of each house in the street. It actually had to bend down to peer into the upstairs windows. That's how tall it was. It would stop and peer in. Then it would slide on to the next house and stop again and peer in. And so on along the street. It was much closer to Sophie now. Could see it more clearly. Looking at it carefully, she decided it had to be some kind of person. Obviously, it was not a human, but it was definitely a person, a giant person. Perhaps Sophie stared hard across the misty moonlight street. The giant, if that was, can I say that's?
That's indeed what it was.
That's indeed what it was.
If that's indeed what it was. Or
If that's indeed what it, if that's what it was.
Yeah. It wouldn't sound right if you said what's it was.
Was wearing along a black cloak. In one hand, he was holding what looked like a very long, thin trumpet. In the other hand, he held a large suitcase. The giant had stopped now right in front of Mr. and Mrs. Goochy. Goochey apostrophe S.
Goo.
Yep.
Gotchels. Gucci's. Yeah, just go with it.
The Gucci's had a green Grocer. Grocer's shop in the middle of the high street. And the family lived above the shop. The 2 Gucci children slept in the upstairs front room. Sophia knew that the giant was peering through the window into the room where Mitchell and Jane Gucci were sleeping from across the street. Sophia watched and held her breath. She saw the giant step back and pace and put the suitcase down on the pavement. He bent over and opened the suitcase. He took something out of it. It looked like a glass jar, one of those square ones with a screw top. He unscrewed the top of the jar and poured out what into the end of the long trumpet thing. Sophia watched trembling. She saw the giant straighten up again, and she saw him poke the trumpet in through the open upstairs window of the room where the Gucci children were. I don't know what that's a picture of, but it's a picture.
Is he in? Yeah, he's there.
Oh. Sleeping, she saw the giant take a deep breath and whoop, he blew through the trumpet. No noise came out, but it was obvious to Sophie that whatever had been in the jar had now been blown through the trumpet into the Gucci children's bedroom. What could it be? As a giant withdrew the trumpet from the window and bent down to pick up the suitcase, he happened to turn his head and glance across the street. In the moonlight, Sophie caught a glimpse of an enormous, long, pale, wrinkly face with the most enormous ears. The nose was as sharp as a knife, and above the nose there were two bright, flashing eyes, and the eyes were staring straight at Sophie. There was a fierce and devilish look about them. Sophia gave a yelp and pulled back from the window. She flew across the dormitory and jumped into her bed and hid under the blanket. And there she crouched until still as a mouse and trembling all over.
No,
Was it tingling?
you were right.
Oh, tingling, sorry.
The snatch.
Isn't he doing so good?
He really is.
Like, you're growing leaps and bounds in your reading capability. It does help that you've read this before.
Have you read this one?
No, he has not read it, but you've heard it before.
Yeah.
But you are doing very, very well.
Should we stop at snatch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your mother's tired.
Do you have a bookmark for it?
Look up inside that top drawer right there.
Let me see your